What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today we are doing something a little bit different in terms of the production. Let me know what you think. This compared to me just sitting at my desk talking to you all. So we are going to be discussing a 3.5 book that I fell in love with a long time ago and how we can update it to 5th edition. So let's get into the actual book itself, its history and what it was back in 3.5, and then we'll get into how to update it for today's game. So the book itself was called Weapons of Legacy. I've talked about this on the channel before in my top 10 books from previous editions that you should use for your 5th edition game. And now I'm going to give you practical advice on how to do that. So how did Weapons of Legacy work in 3.5? So these were weapons that fulfilled that kind of fantasy that we have with a lot of fantasy heroes, where they have their iconic weapon, the thing that they carry with them by their side the whole time. You didn't see Gimli in Lord of the Rings tossing his axe aside because he found a better one in an orc. That wouldn't have made much sense. And so we want to try and recreate that for our D&D heroes, of having an item that is iconically theirs, that they carry with them from early stages of the game all the way through to the end of the game. Not the entire game, although you could implement this as kind of a backstory item that unlocks down the road, but we'll get into it. So how did they work in 3.5? These were items that presented themselves as mundane magic items, which is a weird sentiment to say. It would just be like a +1 longsword or a +1 shield, something like that. But they would also have some kind of omen attached to them, something to indicate to the players that maybe there was more going on with this magic item than met the eye. For example, in the book, it goes into Crimson Ruination, which was a +1 great sword, and its omen was that the blade was always warm to the touch, and in the blade's reflection, you could perpetually see a great conflagration just churning in the blade. And so, yeah, something is different about this item. Going to other forms of pop culture, Sting is a great example. When Bilbo and then Frodo utilize that sword, it glows blue whenever orcs are around, which is a cool and very helpful thing for them to have. So this was the indicator that there was something more going on with the items. But then it came time to unlock this new element. And these items had extensive backstories. And when I say extensive, I mean like 4 paragraphs with varying DC requirements to unlock each new element. And I don't mean paragraphs as in like what you learned in 4th grade of like opening sentence, supporting sentence, ending sentence, and that's your whole paragraph. Like, these are long paragraphs. The whole history of an item can take up an entire page in the Weapons of Legacy book. So if you're making your own, get your writing skills in order. Anyway, but that's the key idea here. The more storied an item is, the more powerful it is. Some of these items don't have as big of a history as others, and they are inherently less powerful. And the DCs start off like DC 15 to learn the initial history of the item, just to indicate that there is something really, truly special. And then it goes up from there to unlock the various trials and rituals required to unlock more power. And some of these DCs get as high as 31, but that's 3.5 rules, which is a lot different than 5th edition. So when we do a 5th edition conversion, we're certainly not going to put the DCs that high. Hello, everyone. Editing Eric here, realizing as I'm doing this video, I never circled back around to how I would do the DCs for the history checks. And I would say that they could be Arcana or Religion, depending on the nature of the item that we're doing. But history would be a good catch-all because this is the history of the items. And I would keep things, like I said, DC 31, the player's handbook lists a 30 DC as nearly impossible, which if you want to make it that difficult, you can. But I would err more along the lines of you have 3 trials, start with 15, 20, 25. Makes it very hard for the final check. Or if you wanted to, and this is another way that you could do it, you could scale everything up by 5, 20, 25, 30. But if the player does some legwork to learn more, like they go to a specific monastery, temple, thing like that, then they could reduce the DC by 5 and make it more manageable because they've taken some time and some resources to go research and look in a place that would have the history there. So that's my thoughts on that. Sorry, I didn't include that in the initial video. I just got sidetracked getting on with the video. And so there you go. Hopefully that clears things up. So there are milestones along the way when you have these items that you learn this history to unlock the next ritual. The milestones occur at 5th, 11th, and 17th level, and we're going to keep that for our conversion as well. And so the item remains just a really cool magic item until 5th level. That's the point in which you can unlock a legacy item and start utilizing its legacy power. And they do it with bonus feats because everything had to be a feat in 3.5. But yeah, so you would earn a bonus feat when you completed the ritual titled Least Legacy, Lesser Legacy, Greater Legacy, and all it did was unlock the next tier for that item. But once you've completed the ritual and paid the very hefty gold piece cost for the material components of the ritual, you then would start unlocking the powers. And some of them were very good. Like pretty powerful, not game breaking until you get to the later levels, like the Shishio Katana, that is one of the weapons of legacy presented in the book. You, at 5th level, when you unlock this, you can cast Charm Animal at will, which was a 1st level spell. You could only have one animal charmed at a time, but still, that's a 1st level spell at will, especially in 3.5 days. I think was pretty potent. Then 8th level, you can just summon a lion. And then down the road, you can summon a dire lion, which is also very cool. But they had drawbacks also to utilizing the weapon of legacy, because at certain levels, you could take a -1 to your attack modifier, saving throws, lose hit points, or even lose spell slot. And I imagine this was an attempt to balance the very epic power you were getting with this item against another character who maybe wasn't utilizing the Weapons of Legacy supplement. And that is functionally how these items work. Sure, there were lots of other fiddly bits because it was 3.5, so there are like a bunch of feats that can affect how these items work, and like spells that you can get to like affect the powers that you channel with these. But for our purposes, that's as crunchy as we're going to get, because 3.5 D&D is about as crunchy as overcooked granola that's been left out for a few days. So we're not getting that far into the weeds. So how do we bring this into 5th edition? There are two approaches we can take. One is to look at the items presented in Weapons of Legacy and do our best to do a one-to-one conversion of each item. You know, look at the spells, look at the abilities, find the 5th edition equivalent, and slot them in as best we can, affect the modifiers, yada, yada, yada. But that's boring. Doable, but boring. Because it's me, I want to take my love of 4th edition and get everyone on that bandwagon. So we're going to steal a system from 3.5 and powers from 4th edition to create something for 5th edition. Buckle up, nerds. Okay, so the first question is the personal cost element. I've done Weapons of Legacy in the past before where I did not include any kind of personal cost and just like, I'm just going to have the power stack on top of what the players can already do, which is fine, but it seems like it's not, it's not in the spirit of the system. The system was designed to have a personal cost attached. So I want to do that. And then if you just want to let your players be superheroes, you can just eliminate the cost. So that's what we'll do. Now, there are enough. So here's a quick caveat. I've not playtested any of this yet. I intend to implement this in my home game. And so if you all are interested, let me know and I'll do a follow-up on this to let you know how it's going and what I've tweaked and what worked and didn't work. But as of right now, all this is unplay tested. So take all this with a grain of salt, take it to your tables, use it, let me know how it works. And while we're talking about plugs and stuff, we are nearing 10,000 subscribers, which is huge. We're less than 2,000 subscribers away. So I decided giveaway time. So when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm just going to pick a subscriber at random and I'm going to buy you like whatever book you want off the DM's Guild or D&D Beyond. Just whatever, no bundles or anything, but any book that you want, I'll buy it for you. So yeah, subscribe if you haven't down below. Tell your friends, have them subscribe. When we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'll buy you something nice. So bribery. Anyway, be sure to subscribe and like the video. Thank you all so much. On with the video. So in the actual Weapons Legacy book, they have a bunch of different tables that you can pick from of the various costs of like hit points, attack modifiers, saving throws, yada, yada, yada. but it's just a lot of work from a design standpoint. And I don't want to come up with tables like that, because the thing is, it gets the numbers into the equation here. What a sentence. And while 3.5 and 5th edition have a lot of similarities on the surface in terms of the way the numbers work, bounded accuracy is like the foundation of 5th edition and was not a concern with 3.5. Once again, DC 31 history check. So I don't want to get into the numbers because they don't correlate as closely as I think a lot of people think that they do. So rather, I'm going to do the easiest thing that I can think of, which is where when you unlock the least tier, the first ritual that you can unlock for this system, then every time you finish a long rest, you have to sacrifice 1 hit die to remain attuned to the Weapon of Legacy. And then when you unlock the lesser legacy, the second tier, it then goes up to 3 hit dice every day. And then once you get to greater, it's 6. Keep in mind, this is 5th level, 11th level, and 17th level. So for a 17th level character, 6 hit dice is costly, but not debilitating. That's my thought process on it. And what I like about this is players will always have that many hit dice, since you recover half your hit die at the end of a long rest. They'll always have that to pay. And it is a substantive cost, especially if they're using a lot of hit die. You'll feel that, but it won't use all your hit die. You'll still have some to use. And so you just have to manage that. And I like it just because it evokes this idea that you're tying your essence, your life force, your legacy to this weapon, item, whatever. So now that we've got the cost sorted, what about the powers? And this is where 4th edition is coming into play. Woo! So I like the idea of using the 4th edition powers to give us tactical functions for a character that they otherwise might not have. Like the Invoker from 4th edition is a divine controller that can manipulate the battlefield and debuff enemies and give a little bit of buffs to their allies with the power of church. And I like this from a design standpoint when you're making your own, because what makes something like this difficult is coming up with the various powers that they unlock at various levels. I've tried to do this before where I just homebrew everything, and it's taxing. It's not fun eventually to sit down and think, okay, they're about to level up, their weapon's about to level up, so what now? And having to come up with something. By utilizing a 4th edition class, you have literally level by level choices. Like you have a group of, here are like 5 different options at level 17 that they could get. And that's great. That's simple. And it gives you a through line and a clear direction for the item. So general rule of thumb, I'm only going to be sticking to encounter and daily powers as I'm going through level to level, just because adding at will things seems a little overpowered to just have something that you can constantly be doing. With the encounter powers, it will be number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus rather than per short rest, just because that's cleaner. The only exception is the 5th level ability. The first one that you get is going to be an at will power, because I think having an at will ability to signify like the default attack for a super cool weapon is fun and neat. So let's take a look at the Invoker and how we can make something cool out of it. The Flames Invoker, +1 longbow. The Omen is the bowstring appears to have silvery flame running up and down it constantly, and the first time the bowstring is drawn every day, the bow emits bright light in 60 feet in every direction. Okay, why a longbow for something that is like a divinely powered martial weapon? It's because in Eberron, there's the Church of the Silver Flame, which is a really cool organization, lots of depth, lots of nuance to it, not your typical fantasy church, including the fact that its preferred weapon is the longbow. But it is the kind of iconic churchy church in the setting. So a lot of the artwork and everything has full plate sword and board paladins running around invoking the name of the Silver Flame. And so I want to create a cool martial weapon for those followers that actually use the preferred weapon of their divine being. So we're going to go with a longbow that evokes the idea of the Silver Flame. And if you don't play in Eberron, this is just silvery flame. So pick a god that uses silver fire and likes longbows. And there you go. Okay, at this point, I would need to craft like an epic backstory for this item. And this video is already probably going to be pretty long. And we don't have time for me to like read an entire D&D splat books page worth of backstory. So we're going to do bullet points of the rituals at 5th, 11th, and 17th level. So at 5th level, the least ritual, you have to defeat a hostile fiend in combat that is a challenge rating equal to your level or higher. Not one-on-one necessarily. You don't have to get the killing blow. You just have to defeat it in combat. But it has to be a pretty potent bad guy. That's my thought. If you want to make it more difficult, you could say single combat, or you could say you have to get the killing blow. And then you also have to pay 4,500 gold pieces to complete the ritual, because these things are expensive. And money sinks for your players are good. They're good to have, because a lot of times adventurers get so much gold they literally don't know what to do with it. So 4,500 gold pieces, kill a fiend that is a challenge rating equal to your level or higher. The lesser ritual is pay 12,500 gold pieces, and you have to oversee and speak at a memorial for a fallen warrior of the flame. So you are giving back to the church, you are contributing. And the idea is these backstories, each paragraph that leads up to a ritual would tell a story about how the hero who wielded this weapon performed this act, essentially. So you are getting in tune with the legacy of this item in order to unlock its powers. And then the greater 40,500 gold pieces, and you have to travel to the city of Desolate in the Demon Wastes and purify it of any malice or evil beings. So this is like Eberron lore stuff, where the village of Desolate has been tried to be settled over and over again. It's right on the borders of the Demon Waste, and it keeps getting wiped out. And so now nobody lives there. And so the idea that there's some like great malice that lurks beneath the surface of Desolate, and then if you cleanse it, people can live there again. And you unlock this stuff. And that's a cool personal quest for like a 17th level hero, to go like sanctify this entire town that's been like over and over again destroyed. And now on to the powers. So quick note, the Invoker was obviously a caster class for 4th edition. This is a martial weapon. So there's a little bit of like desynchronization going on. So what I'm going to do is, in terms of using this item, I would say that there are arrows being shot out of the bow that cause these powers to happen, and that all the attacks, with the exception of the 15th and 20th level ones, are saving throws that are based off of a DC calculated by 8 plus your proficiency blows plus your dex modifier, because it makes sense to me that an enemy's ability to dodge these attacks come from how good of a shot you are, like those two things being against each other. So that's my thought process. DC is calculated that way. And also a legacy power can replace an attack as part of the attack action once per turn. So obviously if you have fighters using this, they're going to be doing many attacks. And I wanted to account for, they can do one of these abilities in addition to the other attacks. I might remove the restriction and say, because with the exception of the first one, all the other ones have a limitation of per proficiency bonus or once per long rest. And so that might be enough balance to say, yeah, you could just go Nova and do like every ability this weapon has in one attack action and just go nuts, but then you don't have like half your stuff for the rest of the day. But with 5th edition, typically you're only doing a couple of encounters per long rest. So I think having the restriction of you can only replace one of your attacks that's part of the attack action with one of these abilities is a good balancing factor. But try it out. Let me know. 5th level, when you complete the least legacy ritual, you get Vanguard's Lightning. Now, I'm going to change the damage type from lightning to radiant damage, though, because, yeah. And instead of plus wisdom modifier, as this card says, plus dex modifier, because it's based on your range attack. But it's a dexterity saving throw, and it's a 15-foot cube within 60 feet. So on this card, it's area burst 1, which would equate to a 15-foot cube, but a dish is centered on the point that you select, and within 10 squares, which would actually be 50 feet. But most things, like looking at the ranges for spells in D&D 5th edition, most things equate to like 60 feet. So I'm going to go with that instead of 50 feet, just to keep things in line with most other things in the system. But this is a super cool power. Like you pick a point, shoot, everybody makes a dexterity saving throw, and those that fail take 1d6 plus your dexterity modifier radiant damage. And then when the target makes an opportunity attack before the end of your next turn, they take radiant damage equal to your intelligence modifier. Once again, I would change that to dexterity. But this idea that like the silvery flames centered on this arrow like lash out and hit all the enemies that are around it, and then these tendrils stay connected to them, and if they swing their weapon, they take more damage, is super cool and a great way to control the battlefield, which is what we're going for. Symbol of Hope. This is a bonus action ability, but it's super cool and flavorful, especially for somebody that's part of this like lawful good or just good in general divine organization. So you invoke this Symbol of Hope on the battlefield, which in my mind is shooting an arrow into the ground at a particular point within 60 feet. And then any ally within 25 feet of that arrow gets advantage, changing it to advantage instead of the +2, advantage on their saving throws. And any ally who starts their turn within 5 squares gains 5 temporary hit points, which is a really cool buff to like throw out on the battlefield, especially when your party is in dire straits, giving that bonus on saving throws and temporary hit points. And every turn after that, you can continue to use your bonus action to keep the arrow active out there. Which bonus action to sustain was a 4th edition thing instead of concentration. So I don't know, but like it wouldn't make sense to do concentration here because it's a martial character. And so if they don't have any other spells to cast, then it's just free for however long the duration is, which this doesn't have a duration. It's just bonus action to sustain. So I would just keep it that. And then once the combat's over, it's done. Probably for the sake of the metagamers out there, though, add like a 10-minute actual duration, because then you could say, well, I'm still using my bonus action outside of combat to keep it going all day, every day. So yeah, which no, that's not how this is. Like 10-minute duration. There, done. Okay, this next 7th level ability is, I think, like was the inspiration for this whole video, is seeing how evocative this is for a divine character, somebody that follows an ideology in a church, is so cool. It's called Invoke Obedience. It's proficiency per day, 15-foot cube within 60 feet. But before the attack, each target can fall prone as a free action. Basically, you're demanding that they bow to the power of the flame, and they can. But if they don't, then they get hit by this. So if they fall prone as a free action, the attack misses them. But if they stay standing, then it's a wisdom saving throw. Fiends have disadvantage, is just something I'm adding for flavor, and they take 2d6 plus dexterity psychic damage if this hits them. You can make it radiant, but I like the idea of it being psychic, of you just demanding that they bow, and those that defy you, their mind is racked. But I love how evocative this is, because you can manage to shoot the arrow up near your melee party members, hopefully not including them in the burst, but get all of these creatures to drop prone, and then all of a sudden they have advantage on attacks against all these prone creatures around them, which is super cool. Or if it's somebody that's trying to run away or something like that and they drop prone, well, that's half their movement that they have to use to stand back up. Cerulean Flames, dexterity saving throw, 15-foot cube within 60 feet. Most of them are that. And it is you're adding your dex modifier instead of your wisdom modifier once again to the damage. But the burst creates a zone of cerulean light that lasts until the end of your next turn. And any creature that starts its turn in there and leaves is blinded. So you're locking things down. You're keeping them contained, which is something that I don't want to say is fully missing from 5th edition, but this kind of tactical battlefield manipulation that was really born out of the fact that 4th edition used maps and minis so heavily is missing. And I really like this idea of like, here is this 15-foot cube that if you stay in it, we're all good. But if you leave, you're blinded. And then you get a saving throw every turn. Probably make that a wisdom saving throw. No, for simplicity, just keep it a dex. For a persistent thing, wisdom saving throw to overcome it. No, dex. They get to repeat the dex saving throw at the end of each turn. I know that doesn't make sense like from a flavor standpoint, but mechanically just trying to keep things simple. And once again, bonus action to sustain this area. 11th level, once you've unlocked the Lesser Legacy Ritual, it goes up to a +2 longbow. It started off as a +1. I can't remember if I remember to say that. But yeah, +2 longbow. Then at 13th level, Pillar of Guardian Flame. So this is a 15-foot cube within 60 feet, and it's a dexterity saving throw. You had your dex modifier, so your wisdom modifier. But the effect is it creates a zone of fire that lasts until the end of your next turn, and any enemy that is within that leaves it or hits or misses you or an ally that's outside of the fire with an attack, they take 5 fire damage, which is very cool. Like, once again, manipulating the battlefield, locking down enemies. So granted, if you have an ally that's in this burst, then they can continue to go at it, but the enemy can't leave. So if you're trying to keep somebody from escaping, this is great. But then also, if you have like snipers in the back with their longbows, like haranguing your party, you can launch this at them and then say, okay, you can keep attacking, but you're going to take damage. 15th level Mark of Anathema. And this is one of the single creatures. So it's just a ranged attack that you're making against them. But if it hits, 2d10 plus dexterity modifier, radiant damage, and ongoing 10 radiant damage at the start of each of their turns. Save ends make this a wisdom saving throw for sure. And if they fail, the first time they fail the saving throw, it goes up to 15 radiant damage, which I love that idea of like you failed the second saving, or you failed the saving throw on your turn, and now things get even worse. And the effect, there's a miss condition here. I'm not going to have that apply here just because we are doing ranged attacks. Typically martial attacks don't do half damage on a miss. So just going to knock that out. But the effect, whenever the target fails a saving throw against the ongoing damage, each enemy within 25 feet of the target takes 5 radiant damage. So it's just pulsing out of them, continuing to make things worse for their allies, which is super cool. And I like it. And I think it's very fun and not super overpowered. Okay, at 16th level, Icon of Life. So once per long rest, you would create what is a 55-foot cube within 100 feet of you that creates a zone of, it says golden light, definitely going to be silver light for the purposes of this ability, that lasts until the end of the encounter. So you can basically create this huge zone within the battlefield. And when within that zone, an ally gains a +5 bonus to death saving throws. And if an ally rolls a natural 20, here's the 5th edition version, they regain consciousness with half their hit point maximum rather than just 1 hit point. So this can be a literal lifesaver. This can save the party from a TPK. And I would keep it a +5 bonus instead of advantage, because you can have 2 really crappy rolls on advantage, but having a static +5 means that you need to roll a 4 or lower on a death saving throw to fail that death save. So, and it's a 16th level ability. This should pack a punch. And so the idea of this just being vitalizing life, just flowing into your downed allies, keeping them alive, stabilizing them, yeah, it's really cool. And I think this is a really fun ability and could like literally be an ability that people talk about, like a moment in their game, like somebody pulling this out at the 11th hour when things are going terribly. And this could be a memory for like years to come. Glyph of the 3 Blades, 15-foot cube within 60 feet, dexterity saving throw, add dex modifier instead of wisdom. And the effect is the targets take the damage, and then if they move more than 5 feet before the end of your next turn, they take 5 damage, which is, I mean, great lockdown ability. It's not, at 17th level, 5 damage might not be enough. I mean, it is free damage. It's something. But maybe you want to buff it up to where it's like, if they move more than 5 feet, they take 5 damage per 5-foot increment they move beyond that. So if they move their full speed, they're taking like 25 damage, which might be a bit more potent. But I mean, you're already dealing a lot of damage on your turns. So once again, that's why I didn't bump it up in this instance, but your mileage may vary. You may want to bump it up for your players. Oh, and the 17th level ability was the point that we got the greater ritual unlocked. And now at 18th level, we go up to a +3 longbow, Vindicating Flames. So once again, 25-foot cube within 60 feet, dexterity saving throw, add dex modifier instead of wisdom. And the effect is if the target moves before the end of your next turn, they take 10 fire damage. Not move more than 5 feet, just move at all. They take 10 fire damage, which great for locking people down. And then Fires of the Silver Gate. This is a potent, this is the 20th level ability, so it's potent 7d6 plus dexterity modifier, radiant damage. And I would keep this as half damage on a miss just because it's the 20th level ability. Might as well give it some oomph. And the target takes ongoing 10 radiant damage. Save ends, make it a dexterity saving throw. No, wisdom saving throw. And until the target saves against this effect, any enemy that ends its turn within 25 feet of the target also takes 10 radiant damage. So it's like emanating, and you're wanting to isolate a target, get enemies away from them. So you create this massive ring of silvery light, this gate of silvery light, and cause their allies to flee from them. Super cool. So that is an entire weapon of Legacy created for 5th edition using 4th edition powers. I hope you all like it. And another item type that I just want to touch on, we're not going to build a whole one because I kind of want to see what you all think and your thoughts on how you might build one of these. Another item of Legacy type is an item with a dual legacy, which is as someone who played Star Wars Knights of the Republic in the Fable series when I was younger, I love a dual morality system, and that's what this weapon is each legacy ritual, you basically have two options, a light and a dark path, essentially. But and then the powers that you get are different based on which path you're taking and which path you're going down. And the example in the books gives a evil good dichotomy, which is pretty common, but I'm really intrigued by like a law versus chaos dichotomy. I think that would be really cool, taking something like the 4th edition powers for the Warden, which is like earth-based, like very stable. It's like the defender primal class, versus the Druid, which is a lot more chaotic and causes enemies to like move and stuff like that on the battlefield. Doing a duality of that, I think would be really, really cool. So let me know if you all want to see something like that, kind of a part 2 to this video down below. But yeah, let me know what you thought. Let me know what kind of weapons of Legacy you would want to make and whether or not you think that this weapon is overpowered, underpowered. Let me know. Be sure to subscribe to the video. Road to 10K. I'll buy you something nice. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Eric, and I will see you next time.